Good afternoon, Mr. King.
Good afternoon.
Would you please state your full name for the record?
Ben King.
And Mr. King, can you briefly tell us where you're from?
London. Central London.
And can you tell us a little bit about your background? What's your occupation?
I'm a house manager, a personal assistant presently with an individual who also lives in Central London.
Okay. Can you lean into the microphone a little bit
Yeah,
more?
sure. Sorry. There we go.
Now, did you say you're a house manager?
That's right. Personal assistant, house manager. I didn't see Mr. Consume any alcohol during that time in London. There was a large consignment of wine that had been delivered to the house at the start of the visit. Many cases that I had to store, I had to find a place to store. And generally speaking, on a day-to-day, about 1 or 2 bottles of red wine were consumed per day.
Did you ever observe Mr. Depp drink any of the wine?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever observe Miss Heard drink any of the wine?
Yes, I did.
Regularly?
Daily.
Now, I think you already testified that you observed interactions with Mr. Depp and Miss Heard.
Wow, you number one.
Friendly.
High five.
Fair.
Very much so, yes.
Were there any exceptions
Here,
to that?
you want to try again?
Towards the...
I'll rephrase. Did you ever observe any arguments between the two?
Yes, I did.
Oh, wow.
You can answer.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, and can you describe for us the argument?
I can describe 2 of them, certainly. There were a few arguments on that during that month.
Let's start with those 2.
Okay. The first one I remember was an evening. Actually, they were both the ones I recall and I was close to were first particular evening. The couple were due to go out for dinner, I guess. I know the car was waiting in the little courtyard there, ready for them to go, and security were waiting to take them. I was waiting to see them out into the car at the foot of on the ground floor level, to wait to see them out, essentially. And
If you find exercise hard, you need one of these.
Yes, sir.
All you need is 3 minutes. And once you try it, you'll never dread working
Yeah.
out again. Or wasting gym memberships, boring
Okay.
workouts. We're trying to find time to train. Build long, lasting, healthy habits each day with Step.
Jockey?
There's a reason it's been featured in Men's Health, Women's Health,
Okay.
Rolling Stone, and
What that
GQ.
mean?
It works. And today, for a limited time, you can save $50 while stock lasts. Stay motivated, committed, and get the body you really want in exchange for 3 minutes a day with Stell. This is how it works.
And where you lived up until you were an adult. So if they wanted to, your parents could work out a deal with, let's say, like a very wealthy family and basically hand you over to work as like a live-in maid servant, and in exchange, they, the parents, would make some money. It wasn't a lot, but I mean, hey, money. So Clemens put the girls in the orphanage with the nuns so that she wouldn't have to take care of them, and in the meantime, these nuns were teaching them how to read, how to write, teaching them proper manners, plus the most important thing, how to cook and clean. Now, Amelia, the oldest daughter, she was thriving. I mean, yes, she was living in this orphanage with like pretty strict rules, but was a safe environment away from her alcoholic, abusive father and her awful mother. So Amelia, she liked it with the nuns, and this pissed her mother off, okay? She's suffering. So Clemens would take the two sisters, Leah and Christine, and they would end up working and living together as servants for different families. They were working together for quite some time, and they worked well together. And that was just how it was going for them, pretty much, okay? Going from orphanage to hired help, house to house to house. This was their whole teenage life. And yes, they were making money, but it's not like they got to keep it, you know? The money was being sent back to their mother, and the kids were really left with nothing. So because, I got too much. So because Christine and Leah were working together so much, the two became very close, you know? Some would say closer than two sisters should. And over the years, their relationship evolved from being sisterly into being more like lovers. Yeah, plot twist. I did not see that one coming. When I read that, I was like, wait a minute. At first, I was like, that's really gross. Okay? And I'm not trying to justify the situation. But I was like, look. They weren't allowed to speak to anyone working for the family. They only had each other. So yeah, they probably banged and did some stuff. So it's now the year 1926, and Christine is 22 years old. So that would make Leah somewhere around like 16 or 17 years old. Around this time, Christine started working for a well-off, fancy family in Limon, a retired lawyer by the name of Renee Lancelin. Circle back to the guy from the beginning. Now again, the Lancelins were like a very well-established family, not to mention well-respected, even envied for their lifestyle and their beautiful ass home. And Christine is working with this new family for about 2 months, and I guess they really liked her, and they wanted to hire somebody else, and she recommended her sister. So Leah hired and came to work for the family as well. So the two sisters were back together with this family. They were given good food, which was like not really a thing to the living servants. They were given nice clothes to wear for church on Sundays. They also shared a bedroom. But this bedroom had the downside was they had a lot of responsibilities. Like they had to clean the entire home. They had to do all the cooking and stuff, and just the daily chores. The two sisters would spend anywhere from 12 to 14 hours a day working in the home, and then they would do this 7 days a week. The only time they got off was when they had to attend church, which they had to attend. So is that considered off time? But it seemed to be working for them because, I mean, the sisters would end up working for this family for over 7 years. And they claim to have never, not once, spoken to Mr. Lancelin throughout those 7 years. Which is wild. They were only allowed to communicate to Mr. Lancelin's wife, Leonie, or their daughter, Genevieve. But that was only like if they were spoken to. You couldn't just like go up to them wild and start a conversation with people. So again, the sisters really just had one another. But rumor had it that Leonie, Mr. Lanson's wife, she had very unrealistic standards when it came to cleanliness and order in her home. She would go throughout the entire house doing her so-called white glove test, where she would check all the surfaces in the house and run her finger along the surface, right? And if there was any type of residue or anything on her white glove, right? And if there was any type of residue or anything on her white glove, things were not clean to her standard, and the girls would be punished. There were times when Leonie would bash their heads against the wall if they messed up. There was this other time when Leonie found a spot that the girls had missed during their cleaning, and this just, really set her off. It depended on the day. Not only did she bash their head into the walls, there was one time where she pinched and dragged Leah over over to the area that was dirty, forced her to clean the area again while she stood there and watched. But she was pinching her skin so hard that Leia started to bleed and left like nasty. I guess it was just really awful. Later that night, Leia told her sister Christine that if Leonie ever tried to do something like that again, she would defend herself next time. So the Tappan sisters, they became very secluded.
Are you
They
the
just were very
address
secluded. They
for
were always with each other at the home. They rarely left or socialized with anyone. So as the years went on, the sisters, Christine and Leia, they had been romantically involved with each other for quite some time. I'm laughing because, you know, it's just, that's a weird thing to say. The two were making a little more money, so they were able to splurge every so often and, like, buy themselves. They would, like, go in their room and try on the clothes for one another and then, like, model for each other and then do stuff. But all of that came to a halt on February 2nd, 1930. Yes, my dear friends, we have returned to the fateful night that this episode began on. Mr. Lancelin planning on seeing his wife and daughter at a dinner party. The two of them, wife and daughter, they were out shopping and, like, I guess running errands before going to the party, but they were, you know, they're all gonna meet there. You get it. With the family out of the house all day preparing for this party, Christine, who was 28 at the time, and Leia, who was 21, were left completely alone at the home to go about their usual routine. Now, Leia had been given the task of taking the house's iron down to the electrician shop to get repaired. She goes down there, she drops it off, she gets it fixed or whatever. She brings it home and she plugs the iron in. When she plugs it in, it blew a fuse and the entire house lost power. So, whoopsie. So the two sisters are trying to figure out, like, what's their best move here? If they fix the power, it would take time away from, like, their daily tasks. And then, like, having to get the iron fixed again would also just take up time that they need to spend on other things. So they decided it would be best, like, hey, let's use the rest of the daylight to finish the chores. The power and the iron can handle that tomorrow. The family, they weren't supposed to be home until, like, super late that night. So it should be okay because maybe they won't notice. They go about their day, they're doing their stuff, they're cleaning like normal, whatever. Fortunately, things did not go according to plan. Leonie and Genevieve returned home in sometime between like 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. Without warning. Which, to be fair, I mean, it's their home. They don't need the warning. They can come and go as they please. But the sisters were like, shit, like, I'm not supposed to be home. So the two ladies come into the house, and whoopsie, not only is the power out, but Leonie, she's like, excuse me, my clothes are not folded or ironed. What have you guys been doing all day? And I guess from, like, Leonie's perspective, nothing had been done, and the girls had just been, like, lollygagging all damn day. So Leonie was livid, and, like mentioned earlier before, when Leonie was livid. So Christine, she's trying her best to explain what happened. According to Christine, Leonie wasn't having it. She ended up attacking Leonie. She attacks Leonie. And Christine said, in self-defense, she grabbed a pewter jug, which I had to Google because I was like, what the fuck is a pewter jug? It's like a fancy-looking pitcher that's made from metal alloy, mostly from, like, tin. So Christine grabs this, and then she's like, she beats the shit out of Leonie. And she's like, I was defending myself. It snaps in Christine, and Christine yells, I'm gonna massacre them! Which is, like, quite the announcement. So Christine yelled for Leia to, like, smash Leonie's head in and tear her eyes out. Christine did just that. She snatched the girl's eyes out, and I guess Leia snatched Leonie's eyes out. Some eyes definitely snatched with fingers. Is that easy? Is it really that easy? You could just... I don't like that. I don't like how easy this sounds. Once that was done and their eyes were indeed snatched, the whole thing got taken to the next level. It was no longer self-defense. Genevieve and Leonie are on the floor, screaming with no eyeballs. So the sisters were like, hey, we can do whatever we want to them because they can't fight back. Like, they can't see us. So they walked around the house to look for some tools to help them finish the job. They grabbed a knife and they grabbed a hammer. So they ended up using the hammer first to beat the women until Leonie